Hi, this is Jackie. I just want to give you a very brief perspective or my thoughts about the Harriet movie that came out on Friday, November 1st. Now, there's like a lot of controversy about the person who's playing the role, and she did, the woman Cynthia, she did do a interview which she explained that her tweets were taken out of context from something that she posted years ago, which is just very interesting to see how even later in life how people could still bring up things from that you posted years ago and still not have an understanding of what your tweets were about if they don't know why you posted what you posted. But that's, to me, is I always get concerned. I said people, they have to make their own judgments and find out things for themselves. So I usually tell people to find out things for yourself before you go out here and make comments about them. Hence is why I was so interested in seeing the movie. Particularly, I consider Harriet one of my heroes. I'm always, drawn to women who are spiritual warriors. I look at Harriet Tubman as that due to my American heritage, and Queen Nanny. For those of you who are not familiar with Queen Nanny, she led some of the revolts back in Jamaica back in the 1700s, the slave revolts back then. They were fighting the British. So to me, there's a lot of similarities between Harriet and Queen Nanny, which I consider them like my role models from a spiritual warrior's perspective. Back to Harriet herself and this tale that's being currently told in the movies. I said one thing I always tell people, I said, you have to remember Harriet's not being marketed. This movie is not being marketed as a documentary. It's not being marketed as an autobiography. This is basically a story that someone is telling their perspective about Harriet using fact and fiction. And you have to also remember this is Hollywood, so you have to use what sells. That's just the industry. People who are in this industry knows that. If you're doing anything in the entertainment industry, this is how it is. So once knowing those things, that takes a lot. I do enjoy it. I did enjoy the movie because it really showed a lot of like how her spiritual connection with God led her to do these type of journeys to free the enslaved Africans on the plantations. I think that's a very key thing to understand in that context. I think it also reminded me how important it is to trust your instincts, especially in situations like danger. It wasn't, if you look, for example, without me giving the movie away, and for those of you who did see it, you notice if she had if her inner voice, that we'll call it these days, or if God basically told her not to go a certain way, she did not go. And you have to think in your life how many times you knew not to go a certain way and you did it anyway, and it didn't, and it had some negative consequences. So definitely I would look at it from the perspective she was very aware of these gifts, and she followed the instructions as they were given through her through these spells. So I enjoyed that perspective. She listened and she honored her calling and what she did, and she moved forward and she helped so many people, which is a good thing. The other thing that bothers me a lot is the whole situation that keeps coming up in social media or on the internet, that the white slave master was the hero in the movie. And for someone who's really into like action and superhero movies, if you saw the movie, you understand how slavery worked back then. He was not a hero. There was nothing heroic about him. The main reason why he wanted to make sure Harriet was not harmed is because of her value as a slave. It had nothing to do with her saving her from the bad black bounty hunter. You have to understand that. You have to understand that this is why slavery was such a big deal back then. And Byron Allen mentioned this in the Breakfast Club interview. If you haven't seen that, and if you haven't seen the Harriet movie, I would advise you to watch his interview to understand when he started talking about slavery and how black people are viewed. And when you go see this movie, you would not think it's like, no, he's not trying to save her. This woman is worth a lot of money. He can sell her and make a lot of money. That's why he did not want her harmed. It had nothing with him being a heroic guy that wanted to save this woman. He had an agenda, which I also don't understand with some other comments about some kind of love situation going on with those two. Remember, he's the slave master and she was the slave. So he did a lot of manipulation to make her feel, or wanted her to feel, like he cared about her. And the best thing about a situation like that was that Harriet already knew the game, and she knew he was just full of it. She was like, this, she knows clear and well that this man did not give a damn about her. So I looked at it from a place of strength, and that Harriet knew that she knew she was not a slave, and she refused to live the rest of her life as one. Like I said, this is not a autobiography. This is not a documentary. If you're I always believe things like that you need to read in books anyway, because no movie, as we know, tells like an accurate description of the person unless you basically read the book. That's why they always say the book is much better than the movie. So that's my take on the Harriet movie. I like Harriet. I like the story of Harriet. It was an interesting twist to the story. I even found out some factual things that I didn't know about her. Like, I didn't know she was married twice. I thought that was really interesting. So things like that came up because you always usually see the storyline. You really never hear of her having anyone in her life. So that was really fascinating for me. And I did like the fact that she defended herself. She learned how to use a gun, and she used it as necessary to protect those that were with her. I think that's important to understand. And I know we have a lot of debates around gun control, things of that nature. But when you look at situations like that, where lives are really being threatened, and unfortunately, in a lot of cases, through laws that were established by, unfortunately, the government, you have to protect yourself in that capacity. Nobody, especially because she did not want to be a slave. So that was just basically a version of domestic terrorism back in the day. Again, my opinion, but I think the fact that she was able to defend herself was really an important thing, because that was part of her calling. But as those who know me, they know how I feel about these topics. And a lot of things is always come a place of self-defense. So overall, I enjoyed the movie, but I looked at it from the eyes of someone who's very interested in studying women who are spiritual warriors, and that, why they're called into this work. So people like the Harriet Tubmans and the Queen Nannies, the Joan of Arcs. I'm into stories like that. So I looked at it from the lens of someone who enjoyed spiritual warriors in action. So if you're not planning to see the movie, wait till you can stream it. Then you don't have to worry about paying for it, because some people are already saying they're not going to watch it. But I do think you need to watch it from the perspective that it's not an autobiography. It's not a documentary. This is a Hollywood movie. It's going to be a lot of elements of fiction in it. So that's my perspective. I'm a believer. If you haven't seen it, don't give your opinion on it. You have to be able to see it, and then you can probably make more of a very critical, constructive criticism to make about a movie such as this. So that's my opinion. Take it as you wish, but I'm just giving it from a spiritual warrior's perspective. I think it was a well done movie from that perspective. One thing, like I said again, I've learned how important it is to trust your instincts and listen to that voice when it tells you to go which way, or go to another way that you don't need, not to go another way because it's not safe. So that's just my feedback. So that's it. Thanks so much. Bye.